Thanks for being here. Let's start. I always love coming out to Mission Branch Library because the whole campus always is something to see. So it's wonderful to be here. Let's go ahead and start with a roll call. Nicholas?
Today is July 24th, 2024. The time is 4:34 p.m. Those present are Carla Gurgiola.
Here.
Joanne Harris.
Here.
Josie Martinez.
Here.
Andreas Sanchez Muniz is absent. Marianne Valdez Hernandez.
Here.
Fernanda Cardenas is absent. Paul Stahl.
Here.
Marcy Inns.
Here.
Beth Graham is absent. Judy Cruz.
Here.
Just read forward.
Here.
Board Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's begin with a silent meditation. Bring our attention and focus to the work we have ahead of us here today. Next, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes for the June 21st, 2024 special call meeting, the June 26th board meeting, and the July 11th meeting. The meeting minutes were sent in your packet ahead of time. They're also here. Take a look at them if you have not already. And just as a reminder, the special work session, which was called on June 21st, and the ad hoc executive search committee meeting, which was also a special call meeting on July 11th, are separate sheets.
You might want to take them individually, because I was at some and not all of them. I mean, I just want somebody to approve all of them at the same time.
I think we can approve all of them as long as they're, do we need to do those individually?
The board can choose.
Okay, I think we can do all of them as long as there's no corrections that need to be made, so.
In what I read, it wasn't, in that I wasn't at different meetings, so I don't know if I can approve it or not. Oh, somebody else could, unless I was at all the meetings.
I move that we accept the minutes as printed with the
Okay.
misspelling corrections.
Okay, thank you, Joanne.
I second.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. So we have a first from Ms. Harris and a second from Mary Ann. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we will move on to public comments. And I forgot to ask Sydney or Edward for the listing of folks that signed up to share public comments. That was my mistake. As Edward is grabbing that for me, just a reminder that there are several ways to share comments. Coming to a board meeting, of course, is one that we really appreciate. And the other ways are to email or to leave a voice message, to leave a phone message. So, okay, we do not have anyone signed up for public comments here in person. Just do a quick double check. Is there anyone here that wanted to speak? Okay, and then next we'll move to public comments submitted online. And I believe, Nicholas, you're ready to read those. Thank you.
From Delia Ramirez Trimble, Regarding proposed name HEB Plaza at Las Palmas Library. Libraries are city entities and should not be billboards for commercial advertising by any company. The renovation of LP Library and enclosing of the courtyard are being funded by people of San Antonio, includes West Side folks, through the 2017 and 2022 bonds. This donation by HEB is a very small amount when viewed from that perspective, but apparently the donation gives HEB the right to have its name on the enclosed courtyard, but not the entire front part of the building. Recommend a plaque with HEB Community Room at the entrance of new meeting room. Also, FYI, reps from the Las Palmas area have requested a meeting with HEB regarding issues expired food items and lack of name brand items on shelves, or signage for restroom facilities, only after inquiring, going through doors at produce section, Dodge employees pushing inventory around. To date, HEB has not met with community folks to resolve concerns. Are they trying to buy goodwill by advertising in the LP library?
Is that the only comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to item number 2, which is a report from the library chair. I attended the ad hoc executive search committee meeting that was held on July 11. And I also met with the city manager, Eric Walsh, on July 15th regarding the ILA with Bexar County. We'll provide reports on those in further in the agenda. I also am just coming back from a trip to the Pacific Northwest, which was amazing, very beautiful. And I had the privilege of visiting a couple of libraries while I was out there, which is just something that I enjoy doing. So Seattle Public Library, Vancouver has a library. And then I also went to a library in Bellingham, Washington, which was a very important learning experience for me because I did not know a ton about the history of Bellingham, Washington, and some of the anti-immigration related riots that have occurred there many times in American history. But what moved me was that anything that's like about hate, is very difficult to witness. But what moved me was there is a healing arch there that commemorates like 3 events in history that occurred. One in 1888, I believe, which was like an anti-Chinese event that happened in Bellingham. One in 1907, which was an anti-Sikh event, and then one in 1942, which was an anti-Japanese event. And when I read about it, my husband was like, we have to stop off and show this healing arch and everything, that this memorial to the kids. And I read about it and I was like, this sounds like a terrible idea. Why are we going here? Obviously because it exemplified all of the values that we don't want our kids to be exposed to. However, when I got there, I realized that it was on the back portion of the library, it all just came together for me because it was a beautiful facility, and I had imagined that they carved out that space to create the conversation, create education, and there was an invitation to come inside the library, learn more about Bellingham and how they're making efforts to be very, to have people of all faiths be a part of the community now. And I saw that and it was really nice. It was like, sometimes you hear about healing and it doesn't really talk about, it talks about like documenting the history, but not about what happens after, And so that was really, really nice. I'll probably share some pictures with some of you a little bit later, but that was like really moving. And it was a great reminder that libraries are those spaces, that address everything, and librarians contain that knowledge. So that was really wonderful. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you all, and I'd love to hear what's happening with the trustees and any library related events. And I'm going to start on my right with Josie.
Yes, I was up and around and was able to attend some things. First off, I want to welcome everyone to District 3
to Mission Library, one of the 3 library gyms in our district. You can't beat the landscape outside, being able to open the windows and see the San Jose Mission. It's just very, very special and very, very unique. So welcome, everyone. I attended the nominating committee meeting. We'll hear a whole lot more about it in a little bit. The one I went to was for Texana. We had some excellent public feedback, and it was great to hear from folks about that. I went to Pan American Library, and it was a children's event. It was called Who Lives in the Neighborhood, and it was a collaboration with Harburger Park Natural Area. Wonderful folks who came over. Of course, tons of parents were in the meeting as well. They brought things that were hands-on, animal skins, skulls of possums and bobcats, and then they just explained about the beautiful areas that are available for people to visit. I just love it when the public library has these wonderfully strong collaborations with other departments, and I just had a blast, and so did the kids, and so did the parents. I think that was what I spent my time doing this Monday.
I attended the executive search committee meeting on the 11th with you, or that you were there. Also, Monday at Monday at Memorial, we had the naming committee public input meeting, and I also stayed for the public art input meeting.
I attended the executive search input meeting on the 2nd, the naming committee meeting at Central for the Texana Gallery. It was interesting to hear people's inputs about, or their recommendations for the naming. It was the names were interesting. And also attended the naming committee at Memorial for the Las Palmas Plaza. Thank you.
Marianne?
Yes, I went on Monday with Paul and Carla, the 22nd at 5:30. We went to Memorial to gather public comments for the naming of Las Palmas Branch Library. And it was very engaging. The community showed up. And also we stayed for the Department of Arts and Culture for public input, and they gave us the whole process on the public art for Las Palmas. So it was pretty informative. A lot of people showed up, so it was pretty good.
Yeah, I watched that one online. That was great.
Did you?
Yes.
How did I look?
She looked fabulous.
I've never seen those.
Judy, do you
I need to see
I
them.
tuned in as well, and you looked fabulous. I also tuned in for the art input as well. So
Yeah, it was a lot.
yeah, I mean, but it was good feedback.
mhm.
It was really good feedback. Also, just this summer, I've been taking my kids to various branches. The difference between this summer and last summer is that we've been able to enjoy some of the outdoor space because the weather's been a little bit more forgiving, not 100 degrees every day. So like Landa, they love the outdoor space at Landa. Shout out to Scott for doing that great piece on the outdoor spaces on KSAT 12. This library especially because they have a lot of outdoor spaces, and just happy that kids are able to enjoy this weather, not as like 100 degree in the outdoor spaces. And then collecting the little Boleta bookmarks every week, I guess is what it is. Also, yeah, I guess that's it. And then tuned into Los Palmas, and then of course the search committee meetings that I'm attending. So.
Well, I attended the Friends meeting at Brook Hollow, and I just am very inspired whenever I go to their meetings. They are very functional, and they work together well, and everybody volunteers to do the book sale, and they have sign-up sheets, and then they talk about where the money is going to go, and then the one room we were in, they were going to put those strips up on the top of the wall. They could hang paintings down from the community. You know, it's just very inspiring group of people, and they're very eager to continue to help. Their membership is coming back, and
you know, it was a long meeting, but I really enjoyed being there with those people. Really, that's a really great friends group.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I attended the 20th anniversary of the, what's that, library that just had.
Guerra.
Guerra. And then I also attended both of the naming committee public input meetings, which I was very excited and happy to hear the input from the community. And we had input, valuable input for both, even though the first one was only a few people, but it was valuable information that they shared. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All input is valuable input, so I think it's important for us to always share that message with the public and with others that you meet in the community. We want people to come out here and give us input, and if that's too difficult, then email or reach out to a trustee. Specifically, I know Paul gave that suggestion in the naming committee public hearing. The naming hearing, I should say, sorry, is fresh on my mind because I watched it yesterday. But I love that advice, like reach out to your trustee, send them an email or send them a message, and I think that's what we're here for, so that's wonderful. Next, we have a report from the interim library director, and very quickly, I'll just give everyone a reminder that the director's report, there's a drafted new version in your packet. If you didn't get a chance to look at this, I know this is long, so sometimes opening it up online is not as fun as looking at it paper version. So just an additional word of encouragement. Kathy took I said, well, Kathy, I think we'll make a draft until we get feedback, and she took that very seriously. I can see it's very clearly a draft.
Follows instructions.
I know.
Yeah.
She follows, yes, she truly does. But no, in all seriousness, Kathy and her team are doing a great job of listening to feedback and trying to make the director's report more useful for us. And so I encourage everyone to take a look at it, give feedback if you have it today. If you don't, that's okay too. You can give feedback offline after this meeting as well. But, provide the feedback so that the staff knows exactly what to spend their time on. And with that, I pass to you, Kathy.
Thank you so much. And just a little bit later in the agenda too, you'll receive a presentation about the new draft of the director's report and what we were trying to achieve based on some prior feedback from the board. One of which was shorter is probably better, so you don't have to read 300 pages. That's not the kind of reading we encourage at the library. We wanted to make it shorter and more impactful. So in addition, this past month, I did send a memo out to the whole board about the board's terms because over time, the board's terms had become unaligned with what is in the city charter. And so we're going through some steps with those board members who are being reappointed now to realign. The idea in the charter is that the terms will be staggered, so not everyone will expire 1 year. So what we've done is we're working with the current board members who are reapplying, or in Ms. Harris's case, she had already been reappointed. And where we're aiming for is to have the mayor's appointee, Judy, as well as all of the even number districts expire in 2026. So even 2026. And then the odd number districts would expire in 2025. And then that's going to realign everything. So I did want to point that out, and of course, Edward's working very closely with those trustees who are reapplying now. Our goal is to try to have this item on the city council agenda for early August, so that would then kind of realign everything back with the charter and the way that it was intended. So just over time, it had kind of become misaligned with that. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion on term limits?
There's been no discussion on term limits because really it's at the discretion of the council members. So that's the process. You know, if perhaps somebody's not meeting their expectation, that would be a discussion then.
I think, thanks for doing this. Commend you and the staff for noticing it. I know when I first joined the board, it was like that where you wouldn't have, there would never be a 1 year where everyone would expire and you basically have like a brand new board, which can be dangerous when you have such an important part of the city, right? The library system. And one day you were to have a brand new board, it could definitely make impacts on strategic plan and things like that. So I think this is wonderful.
As Ms. Harris mentioned, there was the Garrett Branch Library 20th anniversary. It was on July 13th, and Trustee Cardenas and also Mr. McCary made remarks, and then Jessica was MC that day and also made remarks, and it was just a wonderful event and a huge celebration, lots of fun. I was there, but I had laryngitis, so Jessica saved me. We did have a regular staff meeting, I'm going to say finally, with the county staff on the ILA. So we had that on July 19th, just this past Friday. It was a good opportunity to share some information. Of course, Mr. McCary attends those with Jessica and me from our team. And then just reads typically there.
Waiting for others to join.
But had a conflict, so we did have the regular staff meeting with them. That is the last scheduled staff-to-staff meeting that's on the books, and we are going to pause because at this point there's also a county audit going on of our data. So the county has asked for some information from us about that, and we'll share a little bit more about all of that later in the agenda. And then I did want to just share with the board a reminder, really, because we've been communicating this out, that on August 5th, we are going to be able to go forward with 2 branch projects. So we're really excited about that. So on August 5th, Pan Am Branch Library will close, and the IGO Branch Library will also close for a period of time. And we will be doing HVAC at Pan Am, so that's a wonderful thing. And then at IGO, we're doing a deferred maintenance project with some renovation scope. And in each of those cases, we will provide interim service on site out of really the meeting room, but it'll be curbside service to the community. And we had hoped that we would also be able to close the Sims branch on that day to begin their project, but we ran into an issue with the city's contract on that one, so we will have to postpone that project. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Kathy?
Could you ask them if they can hear us?
Oh, yeah. Can you all, ask for feedback. Can you all hear us?
It's a little difficult to hear.
That's what I was,
Okay.
that's what I was reading.
Thank you.
Let's try our best to project.
Yeah.
That's coming from the front row.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on in the back.
Well, those of you in the back are invited to move up to the front. So you can
Probably turn the
hear.
table.
And then I don't think we have microphones here, so we'll just do, if everyone can do their best to project a little bit more. All right, so next on the agenda is a report from the executive committee. The committee did meet last week on July 16th to set this agenda. Next, a report from the advocacy committee. Judy?
We did not meet.
Thank you. And then a report from the budget committee.
We did not meet.
No, did not.
And I think we missed the budget
Yeah, budget.
report. The board budget report.
Number
Oh,
5.
I'm sorry. Okay. Let's go back to item number 5. Sorry about that. Kathy, are you giving the report?
I am.
I was about to say, I didn't hear that. I hear number 5, so I can't hear either.
It's just like old times. So Gabby is mercifully on vacation. We decided to let her have a few days off. So I just wanted to point out that for the period of time from October 1 to June 30th, about 75% of the year has elapsed, and with encumbrances, we're slightly ahead of that in terms of expenditures and commitments, but that's just a function of the timing of some of the payments. So we're in good shape. We're also gaining steam on our capital outlay spending. So you'll see that now, if you look on page 2 of 2 on the green paper, you'll see that we're at about 68% spent. So we've made a lot of progress there. A large amount of that money is the PC replacement program. So every 4 years, we're able to get funding to replace the public PCs and staff PCs that are aging out. And so we're kind of gathering some steam there and getting those PCs in and the funds actually expended. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Kathy? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, where were we? Item
Facilities.
number 9, a report from the Facilities Committee. Andrea is not here, but I understand the committee did not meet.
Yeah, we did not meet.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Number 10 is a report from the Naming Committee. So Josie.
Yes, we did meet, and I assume Dale will give our report.
So, too many microphones up here. So the naming committee, as you already heard from trustees' reports, did have 2 public meetings. They'll have another meeting soon to make recommendations about the 2 items, the Texana Gallery and the newly enclosed space at the Las Palmas Library. Then, of course, it's up to the Board of Trustees to decide on the names. Just as a little preview, there may also be, probably will be, a slight change to a name the board has already approved, but the space hasn't been yet completed. It's in Texana as well. I'm not trying to be mysterious. So that's what the naming committee did.
Dale, I got a question, because
Sure.
I know a lot of the community is zeroing in on some of the naming items that have come up. So just for clarification, the community can continue to give, provide input on names, and if so, how is it best for them to do that?
Sure. So, of course, the input is always welcome. However, with these namings that are associated with fundraising, the board did approve in a board meeting the foundation to approach donors and offer these names in response to donations. So I think that's the important consideration. These are not community suggested names. So our naming policy, well, your naming policy combines 2 things that in some libraries may be different. And those 2 things are naming that comes up from the community. And, we've had that kind of discussion. Many of you, not all of you, but many of you were at a name like that for the whole name of the Las Palmas Library. That was a name that came up from the community. It was discussed and a decision was made. That's one thing. The other thing is names associated with fundraising. So I think in some organizations that would be normally called like a capital campaign. So it's a different thing. And in most organizations, there isn't any public component to that. When I've talked to other libraries, they're startled that we have a public component to that. But the naming committee, which at that time was chaired by Jean Brady, when this new policy was put into place, really felt strongly that even though the board had authorized a foundation to do fundraising, the naming committee, and then of course the board adopted the policy, felt strongly that it was important to hear from the community And that especially if there was anything, not to be overly dramatic, notorious about the person or organization wanting the honor of the name, the community should be able to say, you know, thanks, but no thanks. Like, we don't really want that name, and I think we would assume that would also mean we don't really want the money. The two things are not necessarily connected, but, you know, that would seem logical. So where we are here, yes, so on the one hand, the community can give input about these names, and of course, especially if to say there's a problem with that name. There's a reason I don't want that name. On the other hand, the spaces that are called out to be named that as part of a fundraising opportunity are not all the spaces in the library. So of course this other process of where a name is brought forward, you know, by the community to name some part of the library not associated with fundraising, that can happen at any time. Is that helpful?
Yes.
The naming policy, it's not that I've gone to it on the public website all that often, but the very easiest way to get it is go to the website about Board of Trustees policies. Of course, you can also just search naming policy. So it's publicly posted there, you know, for anyone to be able to see. Any other question about that?
Yeah, thanks for that, Dale. I wanted to reiterate, so I love that you gave a little bit of the history too, because I think it's important. Sometimes we hear feedback either from community members or members from other communities, more interesting, sometimes from other communities, where they will say, why are you asking for feedback if this was like a corporate donation that was already, you know, fundraised? And so one thing I just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge is that the work that the foundation does in terms of fundraising within the community is very important for us and has become increasingly important in this, I'm calling post-COVID world. I don't know how long I can use that terminology, where supply costs and labor costs are starting to come out of alignment with our planning, because, you know, it takes a long time to get projects done, and then we have a shortfall, and some of these foundations that can have a bit more money to give all at once are helping us with that. And so that's an important role that the foundation plays for us. And so that's why the board has taken that step of approving some very specific and defined fundraising opportunities. We've looked as a board from a strategic perspective and said, hey, these are the places where we're willing to allow the foundation to go out and seek fundraising opportunities. All of those fundraising opportunities, of course this is all public, but just want to reiterate, they have a minimum amount. So if we approve the naming of a specific space and we say the minimum is 100,000, of course they can give more, someone can give more than that, and that's very much appreciated. The amount more that they give doesn't allow them more words or more letters or a longer name or anything like that. That's completely independent. These are just guidelines because we want to establish a minimum kind of like entry point to be able to put your name on a public space. And we are sensitive, and I know the naming committee specifically is sensitive to the idea of upholding the institution of a public library and then allowing some corporate donors to occur there. So I just want everyone who's listening, or maybe will listen to this later, to understand that we have not taken this decision lightly. We also don't want to have to say, no, we can't do X, Y, Z in a project because we lack funds. So we're really trying to strike that balance between having access to funds and how we continue to uphold the values of the San Antonio Public Library and our mission.
Sure.
The second thing I wanted to mention too is that Dale did a nice job of breaking down the fact that there is branch names which have nothing to do with sponsorships and those individual fundraising opportunities. And I want to reiterate that my alignment as a board chair is that opening these corporate fundraising opportunities or foundation fundraising opportunities to public feedback is important. Others may think it doesn't matter, it's transactional, you have an opportunity, someone's making a donation, just let them name it. It's very important to us to continue to keep that balance. We want to be transparent with the public. We don't want there to be surprises. And like Dale said, if there's some, company that wants to put their name on something and we don't know how they've shown up in the community, it's important for us to hear. So to that end, feedback, even after a public hearing, is always welcome. As I said before, you can call the phone number for the library in the posted open meetings. It gives you an opportunity to record a voicemail. You can leave text feedback in a web form or email it, and you can also reach out to the individual any of the trustees actually. It doesn't have to be your trustee for your area. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Joanne, who's the vice chair, or anyone who's part of the executive committee as well.
Sure.
So I want to encourage that feedback. We want to continue to hear that. I just want there to be a little bit of an additional understanding of why we
Sure.
have these two
And if
different
I could add
opportunities.
two things that I think would maybe expand this a tiny bit more. One thing is that the policy itself calls for this public decision about a fundraising name to be made at a single board meeting. Romero had directed for Las Palmas that we do that we have a separate public meeting. So the meeting we had at Memorial this week was extra to the policy. I think that was absolutely the right thing to do. He and I both came up with the idea at the same time. So I think that was a good thing, to have more public input than just who's able to come to that particular board meeting. And because we were doing that for Las Palmas, it only made sense to do it for Texana. It seemed otherwise, like, why are you doing that? And then the other thing I would just like to add to the expansion is when you read over the policy, a name is essentially permanent once the board approves it, but there is a section of the policy that says, if what this family or individual or corporation does becomes out of alignment with the values of the Board of Trustees, of course the name could be removed.
Thank you.
Dale, can you just speak just very briefly while we're kind of talking about this in general about what type of signage recognition is typically done? Because I know there were some concerns about what that might look like, particularly for the plaza opportunity.
Sure.
I think
So
the neon sign was one of the specific things that was called out.
Sure. So I can definitely say no neon signs. In fact, I don't even think new neon signs are okay. But we have the one neon sign. It's not a sign. We have an art installation that involves neon, and that's it for our neon. Mostly, and I think you can see here, I'm so glad we're at the Mission Library tonight when we're having this conversation, because right outside this room and outside the back door and in this courtyard are examples of signs. They're a little bit atypical because they're more kind of I'm going to say old-fashioned than some of our other signs, but it gives you an idea of the kind of text. They're longer than we've been doing recently. So when you read them, there's like a paragraph. We're not really doing that anymore. So I don't want you to read that and think, oh my goodness, in 18 whatever, Mrs. Butt started, like, it's not going to be like that. So don't read the signs and think that. Mostly what we're doing is aluminum sign about like this. Many of you have maybe seen the one at Carver, because we've been at Carver a lot recently, where the meeting room is named for Prudence Curry. That was not a fundraising donation. They're not all the same. So for example, the teen area at Schaefer, of course, is named for one of your former trustees, colleagues, and it's kind of more, appropriately so. At Schaefer also, there's an example of the single corporate sign that we have outside of the Central Library. In Central, there are many signs where donations were taken from corporations. They're small, they have the name of the corporation. The policy says that signage is at the complete discretion of the library director. What that means is not so much who can't, except that it isn't up to the foundation or the donor. It really is a library decision about the signage. Obviously, there's communication back and forth. And then I know Kathy is committed because she told me, and it would only be logical anyway, that while it is her decision about signage, she would take it to the facilities committee and at minimum bring it to you all, the trustees, as an information item at minimum. So you would see the signage and then that would give you an opportunity to respond to it. But it would be, not large and, not overwhelming in the space. That is definitely. So what I mean by I'm glad you're here is the signs here are like the most we have anywhere. So it wouldn't be more than any signage here.
And I think there may have been some concern at the meeting regarding the plaza naming, that it would be outside, it would be inside.
Yes, it would be
because it's for the
absolutely
meeting.
inside the room. And then we do know that, now to get off of the policy, but there are plazas, called plazas, in the West Side Neighborhood Plan, and I don't think this naming, that's the room inside, would affect potential fundraising. In those other plazas are not associated with the library specifically, but I think they could obviously still have their own names.
Okay, thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yep, thank you, Dale. Next we'll move to item number 11, the Ad Hoc Board Policy Committee. Paul?
We did not meet.
Okay, thank you. And item 12 is for the Ad Hoc Executive Search Committee, which I know met.
Yes,
Judy?
we met June 27th and July 11th, just for an update on the process of the search firm, as well as we were able to give some feedback on that process.
Thank you. And then next we have a report from the Ad Hoc ILA Committee, and we did meet on July 16th. Jessica, will you be providing a quick update?
We can do an update now if you'd like, or in executive session if you'd like to do that as well.
Yeah, executive session is fine.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Number 14 is a report from the Friends of the San Antonio Public Library.
Perhaps not.
Can I cut? I just want to correct one tiny thing. There's a second corporate sign in a branch, which is at Petrenko.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. There.
Children's, that's Schaefer.
Good afternoon, trustees.
Good afternoon.
The Friends are excited because while we were concerned that our online sales were going to discontinue, the volunteers have wholeheartedly taken over the project, and our previous vendor has decided to stay on as a volunteer. So it has seamlessly transitioned into an all-volunteer operation. So, which is great because that was our big concern, as you know, was the fact that the expenses were eating into the revenue too much. So this will be great. We'll now have just pretty much all revenue for that. So that's wonderful news. With the bookseller, we are in the midst of gathering resumes. We posted the position for the manager online and used various other tools. So we've already received about 24 resumes, so we'll start calling through those. And I have to give a shout out to one of our volunteers, Felicia Glenn. She has been doing a lot of posting on social media, so if you've noticed all those Facebook posts about the bookseller and needing volunteers, she's doing that, and we are really appreciative of having a volunteer who has experience in that world and is sharing it for us. Another great thing is the Arts and Letters Awards are coming up, and Mission Library will be hosting our ceremony again, and that will be on November 10th. The link is going live this week, so you can start nominations. The deadline for nominations for Arts and Letters is September 30th. So, and if you have any questions, let me know. I will be able to help you with that. And as you know, we have 5 categories now that we've expanded our Arts and Letters Awards. So we've really made it much more inclusive to recognize a lot of people who have been active in the arts community but didn't fit into the little holes we had developed earlier. And the last is our next board meeting will be July 28th at Gata Library. So,
Did you
any
say
questions?
September 3rd?
September 30th.
30th.
End of the month.
Okay.
End of the month. I'm giving you another 27 days, Marcy.
Okay, thank you. I'll get on it.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, John, and be sure to share with the Brook Hollow friends the rave reviews
I will.
that Trustee Inns provided as well. Okay, and then the San Antonio Public Library Foundation. Oh, there's Amy. I did not see her.
Oh, Neil was in the way. I was All right. Well, last week we had our board builder bus tour. 20 members of our board went out and toured, and John went out and toured 4 branches. It was really great because this year we have 10 new board members, and so 6 of those 10 new board members went on the tour with us and learned a lot and got to ask a lot of questions. And so that's always the best thing, is to get those new board members in there. We did have a little no air conditioning in the back of the bus thing at the first location, but the bus company switched it out, and we had a great day after that. We also, the day before that, kicked off with Whataburger. We went to Bazan. Kathy and some of the library team and Smarty were there with us, and they gave us a big check. We don't have any actual money yet, but we should be getting that pretty soon. It'll be interesting to see, since their big check said something different than what the invoice said. We may have an extra $500 for you
Is there a
guys.
signature on the big check?
Well, don't get me started on the big
You tried
check, because
smart
it was
deposit.
blank, and the girl from Whataburger was writing on it with dry erase, and there was a whole lot of erasing, and so it'll be interesting to see what we actually get.
Did
So
they expect your name on something?
No, they don't. No, they don't. But funny that you mentioned that. I am working on 2 more potential naming opportunities. We have asks out for Texana. Those are not corporate opportunities. Those are family foundations, and those would be deceased ladies' names. So that wouldn't be too difficult. But we do appreciate those naming opportunities, and even though it's kind of a backwards process in that we've already accepted the money and given it to you guys before we get the input. And some people might want it back, Dale, just so you know. But we should have that all wrapped up, and that's about $500,000 in asks out. So hopefully we can convert some of that. We are still working on Over the Edge, so had a kickoff meeting with Haley and Kathy and Scott, and we set up a team. I put Paul on the team, the Librarians Rock team, which you can change that name if you want. But put Paul on the team, and they're gathering up folks from the branches that might want to do that, so you can have the opportunities to support them on their quest to raise money to go over the edge on September 21st. And Paul has all of the safety information, the entire safety prospectus we sent to him. Because I think he went home and his wife said, "What?" And so we sent all the safety
The
information.
beneficiaries
to
on
Paul.
my life insurance policy asked about the safety issues.
So it's safer than driving on 1604. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Amy? I just want to say thank you, Amy, for all your work with the fundraising, and not just your work with HEB Foundation, with HEB and other foundations, but just you really helped us with some of these projects. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you
that's
and
what
your
we're
team.
there for.
All right, next, you're going to receive an update regarding the World Heritage Center project located adjacent to Mission Branch Library. Jessica, will you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Colleen Swain, and I am the director of the World Heritage Office. And as you can see, we're in the process of constructing our new World Heritage Center. I'm going to go to the next slide. I do want to say thank you in addition to the board, but also to the library staff. They have always been a great partner, even before we started building this World Heritage Center. But Oscar hosts a lot of our community meetings, and we've had a lot on the center. And they have exhibited right now the paintings that were produced as part of our Viva Poesia event from some Southside artists that's on the back wall there. So this is the concept plan. It's a multi-phase plan. We divided it up because of funding. You can see right now we're doing the white portion. That's where we're building the center. We were only supposed to have the southern part of the ring road, but I was able to secure some additional funding. So we're completing the entire ring road with parking, and we will also be adding the drum circle, which is the white circle that you see there. Coming later will be a pavilion, and this pavilion will hopefully be a pavilion where we can host our activities, our art activities. Currently we have to bring in a tent. We're looking to have some fans and other items in there, so it's a usable space for us. And then hopefully continuing the trails that we wanted to do as part of the library and expanding the parking. So that'll be coming yet in another phase, either through a bond or if I'm able to garner additional funding through some other way. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the beautiful World Heritage Center, the screen that you've seen that was produced by Adriana Garcia. On the front, as you enter, to your left is a white heron, and to your right is a nopal. The repeating pattern is inspired from the frescoes at the Mission. This was made possible through the Tricentennial Commission. You'll remember that they had a gala and they raised the funding for this, so this will be their legacy gift to the city of San Antonio. Move forward. This is the mission statement that was determined in the interpretive plan. This may be tweaked, but essentially this will provide visitor orientation, and by visitor I mean also residents as well. It will inform the community about World Heritage, and it will most importantly tell the stories of the community and the people. With Gallagher, they are the same exhibit firm that is working on the Alamo, and they have divided this up into, I'll go over all the components, but you can see them here right now, high level. I'm going to go to the next one. This is the shape of the building. That green space is the living legacies that was mentioned in the bubble diagram. The yellow is the corazon, and the orange is the shared stories. We will have a conference room. Our conference room will be able to host about 60 people, so it's not all that large, but we will be able to have some programming and community meetings there. And then the other space in the front will be a gift shop. The community wanted a gift shop, so we're going to try that and see how that works out for us. I do have a background in retail, so. This is the front. It's a little bit hard to see. I guess, why don't we go to the next slide? I guess, yeah. So as you enter the building, you will have a panel to the right that we didn't want to have a word land acknowledgement. So this piece of art will acknowledge that this is land that indigenous people have lived on, and that was the former farmlands of Mission San Jose. So the artist is Doroteo Garza. He is part of American Indians in Texas at Spanish colonial missions. And this is where the painting will go, it's a three-dimensional piece of artwork. It will be behind the desk. You can go to the next slide. It'll be visible through the windows. This is his inspiration. This is the current draft concept, and we will go to the community in August for a final meeting. But this is very three-dimensional. The stars represent the missions. The acrylic is the river, and then of course he was inspired from some of the paintings in the lower Pecos, which incidentally are the same colors that you find on the frescoes of the missions. Next slide. This is again the placement as you enter. The gentleman is looking at a panel. That panel will speak real briefly to World Heritage, and then we'll move into a Living Legacies booth. Next slide. So this is the Living Legacies booth. I've asked the designers to make everything so that I have some flexibility to change things. We don't want it to be static. We want it to be dynamic, so people are always encouraged to come back and visit the center. These will be photos from right now where we have a draft policy and are working on people who were instrumental in the designation or the preservation of the missions. And these photos can be changed out, and there will be audio in this booth as well. Next slide. This is a map that will go on the wall. The color that you see, I don't know what happened when it got converted to a PDF, but the color that you see is the farmlands from the missions, and it will give some kind of bearing to people as to where they are. The insert is Rancho de las Cabras, and then on the wall, we have done exhibits through Dia de los Muertos and other projects where we have acquired paintings, and so on the wall, we can change out those paintings. Those paintings were stories from the community that were given to artists and inspired a piece of artwork. And we have a lot of stories to tell. Next slide, please. This is Corazon, which is the heart. And we had a lot of discussion about how this is more than heart. It's heart and soul. It is the essence of the exhibit, of the center. And so we'll have a lot of pieces in this area. If you go to the next slide, I could talk a little bit more about those. So there will be a video that you see, the 3 images there. That will be a video that almost immerses you in seeing the river, the missions, the different ceremonies, things of that sort. And then there will be graphic panels in the windows to provide some relief from the sun. Next one. You may make it. On the back of the kiosk here, we have the ability to do a 3D scan for objects. So we've already done a call to the community to collect objects. Those are scanned in, and so you can touch it and it'll turn and give you information about that object. And those are in the quatrefoil there and the diamond, and then that's a close-up of that video screen that we're working on, multimedia piece. Next one. So this is that back portion. There is a exhibit rail that has a timeline. It's divided up into key categories, and we also will have these kiosks. We will open with costumes. We'll have a chariada outfit and a costume from the indigenous people here, and then we have the ability to change that out with a sculpture or anything else. The rails will be pretty permanent once those, and so we just had a community meeting on Monday to go over the text for those rails and get that input. It'll be very high level. We're not meant to educate people about every different aspect because there's so much. What we really want to do is give people enough context so that they can ask questions. They're inspired to go out and see the real missions that exist next door, the rivers, all the beautiful assets and activities that we have in the area. Next one. This is an example of what those panels will look like. And they'll have a tactile piece. That's a piece of limestone that people can touch and feel, but it'll have photos, a timeline, and information, just very high level. Next, please. These are some of the tactile activities. One will be a piece of limestone, the stereoscopes. We actually went to the Texana library to look at your old photographs. You have stereoscopes, and so we'll be using reproductions of those so that people can see the 3D images. Spirituality will be a shell, and then the rope, we'll have chariada knots, and for food, we'll have a mana and matate. Next one. So this is the Shared Stories booth. We've already gone out to the community and collected stories and videotaped them. These will be shown in that booth. And so we have the ability, I think, as people see these stories, more and more people will come forward and say, I want to share my story. Next slide. And so we have the ability in this booth to also put objects in there. And so we've been working with the community to gather those objects. One of them is a pecan sheller. I have, my grandmother's house is right across the street here, and so we had a pecan tree, and I have vivid memories of sitting at the table and her telling me, don't eat all the pecans, you're supposed to be shelling them. So that's a common, I think, experience. And then they'll, baseball, there's all kinds of opportunities. Those can be changed out, and the videos can be updated as well. Next one. This is the ring road, and we're giving you kind of a view of the drum circle. So next one will be the drum circle. This is also by Adriana Garcia with a lot of input from the community. The ending drum circle will be concrete with some landscaping. It may not have all of this detail because of cost, but we're working on keeping the true spirit that the community wanted to have in that drum circle. And then next to that will be that pavilion where we can have activity. And that is it. So if you have any questions, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
This project's been ongoing for quite a long time. When did it actually start? Because
we broke ground in December of 2022, I believe.
But the planning
maybe
of this,
2021.
Yeah, but the planning of this goes way back.
This was actually mentioned in those community meetings. That's how this center got on the bond package. Was in those community meetings when we were developing the work plan. The citizens had requested some sort of center. And so the first part of this was approved in the 2017 bond. There was only $5 million approved in that 2017 bond. And you will recall we had $37 million in other projects too. So we're a small team. We had to determine where we could place this, what it was going to be. We searched throughout the city or the south side for land and realized we could not afford land and we could not build a center with the funding that we had. And so we were able to cobble together some more funding. The YMCA was going to do a pool and a drum circle. We got some of that funding. And this is combining a couple of phases together. Because I have a contractor mobilized, I was able to get money from the TERS to do part of phase 2. So yes, it has been a long road, but I believe that the end product will be something that the community will be very proud of and know that they've been a part of it every step of the way. We've done a lot of community outreach, and I'd rather do that on the front end than on the back end.
Well, I want to applaud what you've done here because it's been huge. I mean, this has gone on for quite a long time, and your shepherding your vision, your guidance has been very, very helpful. Do we have a grand opening date yet?
No, not yet. We are with the contractor and the exhibits. The drop dead date for everything is December 20th. But as we know with contracts, sometimes there's a lead time or something like that unexpected that happens. Because I've added scope, that's why that has been extended, because I was able to get money to do that second phase. We will probably, if we can do something in early December, we will. If it looks like it'll be too close to the holidays, then we'll do something at the first of the year, which will be the 10th anniversary of the designation. So,
thank you so much for all your work.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not a question. I was just going to say the artwork on the outside is stunning. Like, it just brings you, it just makes you want to, like, what's in there? What's going on? So that's stunning. Not just because I know Adriana and I'm a big fan of hers, but also it would be nice to have a little, a little something if anybody wants to go dive deeper into the history, to send them over here, and there'll be a section of historical books for them, to dive deeper. That would be nice.
Absolutely, we can do that, and we can also do a lot with web pages and things of that sort. We do want to make sure that we have the real thing in this neighborhood, so we want to make sure that people go experience the real thing as well. But there's lots of opportunities for, depending on what their interest is. We also have the Camino Center that open, so everyone will have a different interest and a different path that they want to take to explore.
Colleen, I had a quick question. First of all, clearly, this is amazing, very exciting. I think it looks beautiful. And my thoughts go to mundane things such as, like your hours. Are they going to be complementary to the missions? Are they be ancillary to the missions? Or how are you envisioning the hours and even staffing? I wonder, is it going to be open? And
so this is a new kind of a venue for the city of San Antonio, and so we've learned a lot along the way. I have worked at a museum previously, but this is not a museum. We're not collecting items. We originally, when we did the staffing plan, we mirrored the hours of the National Park Service, which is 9 to 5, 7 days a week. There's very few holidays that they are closed. We have had discussions because we realize the library has staggered hours. There's some evenings where we're open 12 to 8. There's also, we have lots of events at Mission Marquee. We have movies on Thursday nights, so we want to take advantage of having people there and be open then. So originally we had thought 9 to 5. Now we're kind of rethinking that because we want to maximize the opportunities that we realize not everybody can come during 9 to 5. And we'll have to kind of work through that and adapt as we learn what that attendance is like. And I think that's something even the libraries have to do as you learn what your traffic pattern and flow is. But we plan for 7 days a week, 8-10 hours a day.
Thank you very much.
Well, I just wanted to say it's impressive presentation. Just not only the amount of information you're presenting, because you're saying that you don't want to go too deep, but you're actually addressing a lot here is really impressive. And also everything has a purpose. I think that's really wonderful. So echoing Judy's comment, and our next speaker will probably will be able to help you with, like, for your grand opening, maybe some featured books, a section there. But I also really think the store inside will be something really exciting too, because people love visiting something and then they want to take something home with them too, right? That's something exciting. So thank you so much. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
All right, for our next report, I want to invite Elma, so I do this in the right order, to introduce our next speaker.
Good evening, board. Isn't this exciting? I remember when this was the building that was here alone, and then the Y and the World Heritage Center. Where else can you get education and entertainment and fitness and history all in this one space? It's exciting, and I'm excited to introduce to you the manager who is witnessing it all and collaborating with all of the wonderful pieces that are coming into place. Oscar is a 23-year veteran of the library system. He started out as a library assistant floater, which means he traveled from location to location. He worked in districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 10. As far as I can tell, he's got a few districts to go, so he can't retire yet. He has been here as manager for 6 years, and he has done a wonderful job of collaborating with the community. We're very proud of his work here. When he's not managing, he is enjoying family, he travels. He is a bonsai tree aficionado. He is a Toastmaster, and on occasion, he climbs mountains. To give you the branch manager report, Oscar Gonzalez.
Nice. Great.
Thank you very much, Elma. Hello, everyone. Well, welcome to Mission, of course. Mission Library opened in 2011, and we have, of course, a main area. We have the courtyards, like Dale was mentioning. The First People's Courtyard right here, and back of us, we have the more Senior Balthazar Courtyard. As well, in 2015, this library was nationally recognized as a library building by the American Institute of Architecture. So, yes, it was recognized then. Next slide, please. Okay, yes. So this, as you called it, it is a campus. So we have the Mission Library, but we have the Mission Marquee Plaza just in back of you. We have the National Park Service in front of you. We have the Najim YMCA, and they're now constructing the World Heritage Center. So, and coming soon, we have a city pool. I don't have a pointer, but it would be that big area that doesn't have anything in that picture. Thank you. That's going to be where the city pool is going to be. So it's going to be a campus. There's going to be a lot of things going on at this library and this campus, so I'm very excited for it. Next slide, please. So Mission at a glance. The median age of patrons here, 35 years old, mostly Hispanic. The households language, 50% of the households speak another language, and 20% of the households live below the poverty line. The median income is $50,000. And the percentage of households with children, 45%. And seniors, Seniors are represented by 14% at this location. So next slide, please. We are very proud of our community garden. So in the back of the library, we have a community garden that started with a partnership with Green Space Alliance. So the Green Space Alliance and the stewards of the garden are the Friends of Mission Library. So they've been doing this for 7 years. I think a lot of programs have started with Green Space Alliance, but very few are still active today as our community garden here at Mission Library. So we're very proud. People can take fruit and herbs to just pick them as you want them, you know. So it's a very nice service we have for the community as well. Next slide. This year is the 10-year anniversary of the table tennis health and fitness program. So we have this fitness program for seniors. On Saturdays, it's open for younger crowds, but it's basically for seniors. It's a 10-year anniversary for this program. And this little girl you see here, we had one couple years ago. She came by, she heard sounds, and what are you guys having? And so we have some ping pong. We actually have some beginners classes, and she started it as well. And after a few months, she was very good at it. And I'm just glad to tell you that she's ranked at number 5 in the nation for her age group. So we're proud of her. Next slide, please. So at Mission Library, we partner with other organizations as well, city, and also, in this case, in May, we have a partnership with NASA outreach program. They wanted to impact the Latino and Black communities to go into astrophysics. There's a lot of Latinos and Black folks that go into that field, so they want to do that outreach to the community. So we had a big event here at Mission Library, and a lot of scientists from NASA were here. We also partner with city departments. We had a couple weeks ago the renters' rights meeting. It was media was here, television, and it was well attended, and a lot of families were helped. Next slide. And also we partner with city parks. We have Arbor Day. I think it was November last year, and more than 1,000 people came to this program. Of course, they give out trees. So that's very enticing for a lot of people. So, but we had a lot of people attend that program, and we're going to do it again this year. And we do partner a lot with the Mission Marquee Plaza, and of course with the Senior Center. And we attend every first Friday and first and third Saturdays of the month their programming. We are very lucky to be especially participating in Viva Poesia, and also for the Dia de los Muertos events they provide. So as Colleen mentioned, we have some art display here at the library right now that was done in the last Viva Poesia event that we had. And of course, thank you for visiting the Mission Branch Library. We hope to see you again soon. Any questions?
Any questions for Oscar? Well, thank you so much. Thank you for providing us a small window into all of the wonderful things that happen at the library. I love visiting the Mission Branch Library. You didn't mention the Seed Library, which is like an important stop for me and my family. A few years ago, my daughter and I came out to Mission and did a StoryCorps recording. There was like the StoryCorps band and set up in one of the conference rooms, and that was very, very vivid memory for me, like a core memory, because you're in this historic, the library is not that old, as you all know, 2011, but the architecture gives you that feeling like you're in, some sacred spaces. So wonderful place to walk around and explore.
And it's a unique service as well, of course. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Oscar.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Oscar.
Next, we have an update to the director's report. Scott's coming up. Scott, I hope you're ready for a question about this young table tennis player that needs to be spotlighted.
Actually, there was media coverage of her accomplishments. When
She needs like
I know, we need a
social
a redo.
media refresh.
We'll get on that. Well, one thing that reminds me, one thing that Elma didn't mention about Oscar is that he's also one of the staff who we rely on to provide Spanish language interviews when we have requests from Telemundo or Univision or another Spanish language outlet. So he's an excellent spokesperson for the library, as is Elma. Elma is also one of our go-to staff members, so it's wonderful to work with folks like you who represent the library so well. So I'm here today to just talk briefly about the director's report, the new format of the director's report that you have in your packets today. And I will be concise because whatever Kathy had that led to her laryngitis at Gara, I think I have it now. So I'm going to try to keep this short. The director's report is, of course, the library director's monthly opportunity to present the board with regular system-wide library activities. The collection of the report is led by, of course, the director's office, but there are many functional areas of the library system that contribute, including all of our locations and our public service units. So this month, what you see in your report is that we are presenting a new format that was led by a few key principles, and I'd like to go through those with you now. Our goal with the new format was ultimately, as Jaspreet mentioned, to make it a more useful document for all of you. So I hope that you'll find that it's improved, and we're open to and looking forward to your feedback to continue to improve this document. Just to go through a few of the new elements, the first thing that you'll notice after the beautiful cover page, which I'm very proud of, is the new executive summary. So the very first page is a new executive overview of the activities of the reporting period that focuses on key items and highlights from that reporting period, such as major events, new services, or milestones in our performance or our KPIs. You'll notice then after the executive summary and after the performance measures, which we're going to talk about in a little more detail here in a moment, that the rest of the report is now refocused around areas of impact rather than areas of organizational structure. So for example, whereas before we had a section at the beginning of the report that was nested under this sort of amorphous section called administration, we now have sections of the report nested under things like system-wide services, age-based services, and then location-based services. We also have now aligned the content of the report with the strategic plan, the new strategic plan. So you'll notice that each of those system-wide, age-based, and location-based service entries has right after it a listing that aligns that narrative with the relevant strategic plan goal or goals for that entry. And then you'll also notice that locations are organized now by council district, by city council district. They were previously listed alphabetically, so we felt that it would be more helpful for you all to be able to really hone in on the libraries that are within your districts, to organize those by council districts. So the first is a report on Central Library as the regional library, and then after that 1 through 10, and then organized alphabetically within the council districts. I do want to just say before I invite Randall up to speak that improving the format of this report was a really large group effort, and I want to thank the many staff who contribute to this report, including managers and librarians in charge at all of our locations and public service units. They were extremely willing and enthusiastic about adopting and embracing a new format, because in addition to producing a new format for you all, it required some change in the process by which we gather this information, and the staff was really great about adopting that change, giving feedback about it along the way, and so I just want to say thank you to the many library staff who contribute to this report on a monthly basis. So you'll also notice that there are some changes, some major improvements to our performance measures report, and to talk a little bit more about that element, I want to invite up my colleague, Randall Plasha.
Alrighty, next slide, please. So there were quite a bit of enhancements to the performance measures section. The first page does remain the same. That is still intended to be like a dashboard where it's providing just on one page a comparison of how each of our KPIs are performing against the targets that were set. Now, after that first page, there are some brand new pages you will be seeing for the first time. The idea is that there's one page for each of those 3 KPIs, and it's really focused on trends, right? So it's more, how are we performing same period last year? how are we performing before the pandemic, and there's some visualization there for you. And then also, like you've seen before, those pie charts are still important. How circulation is used by service area, and also how the circulation is used by material type. So that did remain. But at least now it's all together, right? Circulation. And then on the next page there, you'll see everything related to hours of technology. Same thing, it's really focused on trends, different time period comparison, and also some visuals there. And then the next page, if you're following along, is about visits. So this is a page where it will show you some closures, and then in addition to how we've recovered since the pandemic as well. So there's a brand new section after that. It's all about virtual engagement. The board has asked quite a few times, how are you performing? How are we connecting virtually since 2020? So these are all new, and they were kind of in the board, the performance report before, but they're kind of, didn't really tell the full story. They're just numbers. So the idea is this full page would tell the story better. And then the next page after that is all focused on programs, right? So the idea is, even though programs is not a key performance indicator, it is for sure an operational measure that means so much, and it's a full page there for you. And there are some things that are not changing. You'll still have data about the KPIs by location that you're used to seeing, and also the programs and attendance. So that did remain as far as the last 3 pages. So again, the idea is this is more impactful, it's more meaningful, it's organized, and you can quickly gather some information rather than just looking at some of the raw numbers like that. Okay.
I did want to share, just point one more thing out, which is in the executive summary, we were trying to make it more holistic to the report. So you'll see that we have public service and operational highlights, and then a section where we kind of give the key takeaways we're seeing in the performance measures and trends. And then finally, media highlights. Because we share those, of course, with the board weekly as they come through, but this kind of gives you the highlights for the month. I will also add, Scott and Randall have done a great job leading the team on this. And in addition to the changes to the report, they really revamped how folks are submitting the items. So that was an investment of time this month, right? But moving forward, that's going to make it a lot easier for the team. And then also, I believe moving forward, this will make it a lot easier for all the groups, because these items come from everywhere in the system, for them to focus on a couple of items as opposed to feeling like they have to put every single thing that they did for the month, because as you can imagine, that's very time consuming for them and a lot of pressure to list everything you've done. So we're really focusing on some key items to report to the board. We did also just leave in, as it was, the individual branch metrics report, because we felt like often the board members, so those are the kind of the blue charts, those are exactly the same as before, so that you can see for your particular branches how things are going.
Thank you. We have time, I think, on the agenda for one round of questions, right? So let's let's open up to questions. I think we can we just ask Scott, Randall, or Kathy maybe?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions on the director's report? We'll start with questions.
I don't think I have a question, but I just want to tell you how impressed I am. Well, I'm going to talk to somebody here. Over the years, we've made kind of little comments here and there and asked questions on the reports, and I see you guys taking notes, and I think what I'm impressed with the most with how professionally done this is, how much thought has gone into it. I love how it plays back to our strategic plan. A concern I've had that I've just never voiced is, every month it's like, God, there's a lot of information. How much time is spent putting this together? And I mean, are we taking away from other time that could, so that was a consideration, and understanding that needed to be an investment to do it right.
Yeah.
And then just systemically then allow that to play out in the future to where it can be done more efficiently. I want to say I thank you for listening to us, and it looks excellent. I think we'll still continue to have questions and maybe make suggestions for improvements or how can we continue to show these things clearly. But I think really what I want to say is I appreciate y'all listening to us. I think it looks fabulous.
I have a couple questions. Any other comments? So what was the feedback from the staff? You mentioned that you reached out to the staff. You gave the staff a shout out for being part of the process. Can you tell us a little bit about the feedback from the staff?
Sure. So it was overwhelmingly positive, I can tell you that. Just to give you a snapshot into the prior process, there were limited, just very little guidelines given to staff before about what to report via the monthly director's report. And so as part of the revised process, what we do now is we provide a series of prompts. There are 8 of them that cover a wide range of things that could happen at a library branch in any given month, like tell us about a program, tell us about a meaningful patron interaction that you had this month, things like that. And so it provided some structure and some guidance that I think for a lot of staff, and I don't think I know because they told me, it relieved them of some pressure. Like Kathy mentioned, in terms of the sort of, what do I report on? I have to report on everything. Now we need a report from my Learn officer. I need something from my children's team. Whereas now they can really focus on what they feel were the most impactful moments from that month, the things that they really want to communicate to you, their trustees, and to our community, because of course, as this is published to our website, it's also a public-facing document in some way, even though you all are the primary audience for it. So the feedback from the staff just was positive in terms of relief that there was more structure to the process. And then we also got some minor feedback about little tweaks that could be made to the submission form that we created, so we incorporated those for future months. But it was really, really positive overall.
That's good. What is the submission form? How are you asking them to submit?
It's a Microsoft form that we have posted online, so it walks the staff through the process step by step. When they arrive at the form, they have to select their unit, and then they are presented with the prompts, and it just walks them through the process step by step. Gives them an opportunity to attach photographs and include a caption, and it has checkboxes with the strategic plan goals so that they can check off, this is how it aligns with my narrative for this month. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out and gives people structure in order to submit that report.
And I'll just add really quickly 2 things. One is we wanted to bring some transparency to the whole team about why we do this report. Yeah. What is this report for? And I think that, as Scott said, gave the team just more certainty that they were really responding, with salient information. I believe why Scott gave such a shout out to the whole team is because we knew that we were going to have to bite the bullet at some point and kind of fly the plane and change the landing gear at the same time, because it's a month cycle, right? So we wanted to deliver a draft to you in the new format, but with the content for that month. So the team was very, very good, responsive. It was wonderful, a wonderful team effort to get that done. But I think overall, it's an improvement for all of us who participate in it.
We moved up the timeline by 10 days, and every single member of the staff got their report in on time, which was great.
Awesome. Another question I had is, are you leveraging any AI to either produce the report or format the report?
Not AI, although working with Randall, we are going to introduce some automation into the process, because the form, when we collect the information via the form, Randall's going to help me automate the process of spitting that out to a word processor so that we can more easily produce the document, because my role is really cat herder and editor of the document. So he's saving me a lot of time. So we're not using artificial intelligence for it right now, but we are using some automation tools that Microsoft makes available to us, yes.
Okay. Just a more generic comment is that there is a lot of advancement in the use of AI in publishing specifically, and including like copywriting and editing. So it's another way. I think it's an awesome way for us to allow the staff members to provide the input, but not have to like labor over which words are gonna be the right ones, right? And so like I would encourage you and Randall and the rest of your team to see where there's opportunities to use AI. I actually really like, and this is something I do for my day job too, like being able to tie each of the items that we're working on back to the strategic plan. I think that's very impactful, and it gives people a feeling of like meaningfulness of their work too, right? Because you know, someone, I see Oscar in my line of sight, so I'll say Oscar comes in every day and he may not think to himself, today I furthered this aspect of the strategic plan. Of course he did, but he's not thinking it, contemplating it that way. So I think that can be really effective. So I'm super excited about that. I would, since there's parts that are changing, I'm a fan of the new report. And I'm really, to echo Paul's comments, I'm really excited about it. It feels lighter.
It's shorter.
I happen to bring my old one with me, you know, so I could compare that. But there are some things that are missing from the report because it's not as extensive as it was before. That's not a reason to change the format, of course, but I want to make sure we continue to have insight into those items. So, for example, if you ask someone at Carver Branch Library what was something exciting or impactful that you want to share, they may not talk about some of the things that are not listed on these blue pages. And I think those are still important for us to get insight into. So for example, our branches that have like learn centers, if they're not going to be summarized in text in the report, I think it would be great to just, where applicable, add maybe a column, and maybe I should be looking at Randall when I say this, but just so that trustees and the public can continue to get line of sight that this is just a small window, but there's so much going on. I think it's important not only as we continue negotiations with Bear County and our ILA, but I think we need to continue to display in these graphics the expansive nature of how many services the library is a part of. And of course it goes beyond circulation, everyone knows that, but I don't think there's like I don't even have a true appreciation for how far beyond that it goes. Does that make sense? So we won't be able to put every single thing in there, but as we are talking about programs and we notice like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, why didn't I know about it? Maybe, is there an opportunity? And just doing like a very quick check. Is that something that we should add to the strategic plan? Your team is doing so much. It's an opportunity for you to, contribute to the report in a first-person way.
Absolutely.
So there's other feedback that I'm sure people will have. I made a couple of notes. They're all super, super minor, so I don't think it's worthwhile to share here. But I am also really impressed with the report, and thank you, thank your entire team actually that worked on this. Next, we'll receive an update for fiscal year 2025 budget development process.
This is an action item?
It says it's an action item, but there may not be action. It may just be more informative at the time.
Yes, when we, and I'm glad you mentioned that, just because we do have some items on the agenda where we post it for action just in case there's something that comes up, but we're not asking for any action tonight from the board. So we are deep into the development of the proposed budget. So the proposed budget will come out in August. So I did recently get some good news that these projects that you see here, it is the city manager's intention to include them in the proposed budget. So we've gotten some kind of cycles of back and forth feedback, detail, and even to the point where we've loaded them on the financial system. So that's a very, very good thing that these have some these are going to go forward in the proposed budget. So I wanted to share that word with the board. and just give you a very brief information about what each one is. So we do have 2 shortfall request projects. So these are to complete funding for scope that we had previously gotten a project for. So the first is the Collins Garden Branch Library. It's an additional $250,000 to supplement that branch's HVAC project so that we can replace all of the major components of the system, all the air handlers, all the compressors, everything, as opposed to replacing most of them based on age. What we're definitely finding is that where we used to be able to maybe get 15 years out of these major components because they're so overtaxed with the weather the way it is now, that we're not getting that lifespan anymore. So when we do a project moving forward, and this is what we've done with requests going forward, we ask for a complete replacement of everything. We don't try to say, oh, that one's only 7 years old, 8 years old. We really replace everything. So that's shortfall funding for the Collins Garden project. For Johnston Branch Library, we have a current project funded to do renovations to the restrooms, but when we actually started looking at the ADA requirements, this is the branch where we're going to have to expand the footprint of the restroom and move a lot of things around. And so that was also a shortfall funding request. So we were able to make the case to the city manager at one of the infamous Saturday budget meetings and get this shortfall funding. Then we had 2 new project requests that will also be included. The first is for the Cortez Branch Library. And so that is for interior and exterior building improvements. And that is a fully funded amount based on our estimate of scope. And then for the Central Library, we were able to get almost $1 million in the proposed budget for the replacement of the freight elevator. So I have a college friend from San Antonio who still calls Central the new library, but it's not a new library anymore. And so this freight elevator is original to the building, and they do have a useful life, and so we're getting near to that. And so we are going to have that as one of our projects as well in the proposed budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or rely on Mark if they're very specific questions.
I had a question. Were there any, so first of all, thank you for breaking this out for us. This is a great view. And I'm excited, Mr. McCary's not here today, but I'm excited to hear that potentially like over 2.5 million is going to be addressed. Were there any existing, we have a lot of HVAC projects right now. Were there any existing projects that had a shortfall that we needed to address, or have those all been resolved? I know you mentioned, give you context behind my question, there's been a couple of delays, like where you said, oh, we were planning to close on this date, and there was a delay. Maybe, I don't know why the delay was, maybe a part didn't come in, or it wasn't ready, or something was wrong with the contractor, wasn't able to start work. And then I don't know if there's a link between that type of delay costing more.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so the short answer is no, we don't have any other projects for which we needed to make shortfall funding requests. So these are the 2 that we identified there was a shortfall and made the request, and they'll be in the proposed budget. Sims Branch is the one you mentioned a second ago about the delay in closing. That wasn't a funding related issue. It was a contract capacity related issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was no threshold to go to the budget meeting and ask for additional money. There was no if it's over a certain amount.
Right. So not to get into the weeds too much, there is sort of a threshold depending on how you ask for the money, but we asked for all the shortfall requests that we needed, which is these 2.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between a shortfall request and when when a project runs short, like Las Palmas, for example, that we were short money, or it was engineered out, whatever? What's the difference between those 2 things?
So It really is the funding source as to how we pursue it. So for Las Palmas, of course, that was the 2017 bond project. We added scope, and then we went back in 2022 to get additional funding. So that started a bond project, and that's how we addressed the increased scope, but also the shortfall was to request more bond funding. For these, because they originated in the capital budget, that's why we go through the capital budget process to ask for more money. And so some of it's short-term debt, so not long-term debt like bond, and then some of it is actually cash funded through the general fund for deferred maintenance projects. So it really is just dependent on the funding source, how we pursue it.
And also just to clarify, in case I understood some part of your question, for the Las Palmas, for example, there was a shortfall request, not in this cycle, in a previous year. We did address it. Kathy's right that the funding source was different. So rather than just going to the city manager, I mean, I think we still, the budget committee and in conjunction with Kathy did actually notify city management as well that there was going to be a shortfall, and then we entered into the bond cycle to include it as part of the 2022 bond.
Yes.
But it was identified and addressed. Just the process to address it is a little bit different. Yeah.
Yes, and really the same situation for Texana. So we addressed that through a second phase of bond for the shortfall that was identified there.
Was there any discussion of Carver in the budget meetings and any dollar amount associated to the shortfalls for Carver?
Not in the annual budget cycle, but we have briefed Councilmember McKee Rodriguez about that situation, obviously in concert with Mr. McCary. And so the strategy there is very similar to the strategy for Las Palmas. So Carver is a 2022 bond project, and now that we've identified this gap, it's the same idea of the phased approach and going for an additional bond funding in the 2027 bond. So it would, if this plan works out, and we're very hopeful that that will happen, it'll be funded over 2 bonds, very similar to Las Palmas.
Any other questions for Kathy? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
And then finally, we have action item number 20 to receive an update regarding the interlocal agreement with Bexar County. Before we enter into executive session and talk about any details around the contract, I did want to ask Jessica if you can come up and just provide a quick summary of the items that were requested by the Bexar County and their auditor, just for general awareness. And you don't have to read the list, but if you could just give like a summary of the items that they requested.
Okay, good afternoon. In a letter dated July 3rd from Bexar County Auditor's Office to Kathy Donnellan, the interim library director, there were 3 items that were requested. We were notified that the county is conducting an audit, so there were 3 items that were requested. The first was a listing of library locations and addresses. So we have provided that information. So that has been taken care of. The next item is fiscal year 23 information related to circulation of library circulation, digital, physical materials by residency, whether they are county, non-county usage. So we're working to compile that information. That same information is requested for fiscal year 24, October 1 through June 30th, 2024. So we are working on that as well. Additionally, the audit is requesting information for FY23 as well as FY24 to October 1st to June 30th for physical checkouts of library materials by library location. and by residency, so whether or not those individuals are county or non-city individuals. So we are working on that as well, and so the data requested is by unique card holder. So because that information is protected information, we are scrubbing any protected information off and using a unique identifier that is not related to the person's card information. So it'll be county resident 1, county resident 2. So it'll be individual data that is stripped from any personal information. And so those are the 3 items requested. We are in the process of compiling the 2 large data sets. Our integrated library system underwent an upgrade this past Monday, and so we advised the auditor that we would be compiling this information once that update took place to ensure that the system was intact and the upgrade was successful. So we are in the process right now.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the records that you're providing? When the county auditors ask, like, what books has someone checked out, you're providing them with just what's identifiable, and is it down to the zip code, or is it just at the non-city or city level?
Right. So the auditor has been very cooperative. So they sent an initial request that asked for those things that Jessica just mentioned, but to have individual addresses with it. And
like
so
home addresses?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically the address that you have in our system for your library card. Obviously that's PII. So we immediately got back with the auditor and said, we can't provide that, but what we can provide is similar to the last data request that we had submitted to the negotiation team, just anonymized information. So what it'll actually show, as Jessica just mentioned, is a unique identifier for each card holder, and then it'll show residency, meaning city or non-city county or other, because we do of course have some out-of-county users and other types of cards. And it won't have titles.
Okay.
It'll just be the circulation numbers.
And the unique identifier is not the library card number, it's
No,
some
ma'am.
unique
It
new number
literally
that
is
you're
county
creating.
1, county 2, so
Okay.
it's just a unique number associated with what type of resident they
Okay.
are.
So
for
as
lack of a better way of
patrons
putting it.
are, like about the residency status, I guess. So patrons who are hearing about this audit can rest assured that their individual information is not going to be tied to like specific titles of books or like subjects that they're researching or interested in or what their taste in books is.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from trustees about this portion?
And I can share one other detail. So like I said, the auditor's been very cooperative. So when they asked for the information, we knew we had this upgrade coming up, as Jessica mentioned. They were very willing to give us the time to complete the upgrade and then provide the data. So we should be able to provide the data to them very soon. I did inquire with the staff auditor how long from there they felt the audit might take, and they indicated about 3 weeks from when we provide the data.
And you had mentioned, you provided in your director's report that this was a series of meetings that had been pre-scheduled starting in like February or March. And so last Friday was the last scheduled meeting. Is there any plan to have a next meeting, or are you going to wait until the audit results are provided?
The latter. So that was a topic for discussion with the negotiation team. And because of the audit and everyone wanting to get those results before we schedule more meetings, we'll wait until after. And then I should say that the negotiation track and the audit track among the county staff seems to be two totally separate things. So yes, so we mentioned the audit, and the county staff that's on the negotiation team was very interested in, well, what are they asking for, all those types of things. How long, we talked about that a little bit. So it seems like the county staff is not coordinated between the two efforts.
Thank you, Kathy and Jessica.
Thank you.
To continue details about the specific contract and the current negotiations, I'm going to read this statement. The Board of Trustees of the San Antonio Public Library will begin its executive session pursuant to Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney on the 24th day of July, 2024 at 6:25 p.m. The Board of Trustees of the San Antonio Public Library has completed its executive session on the 24th day of July 2024 at 7:11 p.m. The Board of Trustees of the San Antonio Public Library will now resume its open session. No action was taken.
Beth Graham joined the meeting at 6:35.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Beth. I appreciate you joining the meeting. And that was our last agenda item, so I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion for adjournment.
Thank you, Paul.
I always wait
Thank
for
you all
you.
for your time and participation
You always
today. I
do it in a
appreciate
team.
it.